Hi, welcome to Hot Mess History. I'm your hot mess historian, Janet, and today we're going to be discussing the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Prohibition was the result of the 18th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which banned producing, importing, transporting, and selling alcoholic beverages. Prohibition went into effect on January 17, 1920, but proved very difficult to enforce as there remained a high demand throughout the general population for alcoholic beverages. Criminals naturally saw an opportunity to make money off this high demand for now illegal alcohol and began bootlegging. Bootlegging is the illegal manufacture, distribution, or sale of goods, especially alcohol, or in more modern terms, recordings or movies. The criminals created speakeasies, which were secret, illegal drinking spots to distribute their alcohol, and in the process created empires. In this video, we're going to focus on the notorious gangs of Chicago during this Prohibition era. Chicago in the 1920s proved to hold a very critical geographical advantage to bootleggers, as they could obtain Canadian whiskey and bring it into the country illegally over Lake Superior. This whiskey was a naturally preferred beverage to the bathtub gin that most speakeasies and bootleggers were producing without regulation throughout the rest of the country. Johnny Torrio was the Italian-American gang boss in Chicago who, prior to Prohibition, operated a chain of brothels with his second-in-command, Al Capone, and the South Side Gang. Once Prohibition went into effect, Torrio and Capone pushed their business aggressively into bootlegging, understanding the potential wealth to be gained. Dean O'Banion was the leader of the rival North Side Gang and also aggressively shifted his business practices into bootlegging. O'Banion was able to command the best manufacturing facilities for bootlegged liquor on the north side of Chicago and accumulated a massive domain to include several luxury clubs and restaurants. O'Banion's headquarters were famously located in a flower shop on North State Street, where he was ultimately gunned down on November 10, 1924, by the South Side Gang. His funeral reportedly had some 15,000 attendees, including Johnny Torrio and Al Capone themselves. Following the murder of O'Banion, the North Side Gang fell under the leadership of George "Bugs" Moran. On January 24, 1925, seeking retribution for the murder of Dean O'Banion, Moran ambushed Johnny Torrio outside of his home, shooting him in the jaw, lungs, groin, legs, and abdomen. It's reported that the only reason that Torrio had not been finished off was due to Moran running out of ammunition. Torrio survived the attempted assassination, but was left thoroughly shaken. Following his release from the hospital, Torrio served a year in jail for Prohibition violations. It was during his incarceration that Torrio chose to retire from the gang life and handed sole control of the South Side Gang over to Al Capone. Capone was determined to control all of Chicago at any cost and instigated a series of violent attacks on the North Side Gang's networks. As the violence continued to escalate, Capone was able to maintain his growing power and empire by bribing police, intimidating politicians, and ruling with more and more threats of violence. No one was exempt. Throughout the escalations, the local newspapers dubbed the war between the gangs the Chicago's Beer War, and the violent activities would not remain a local concern as these headlines made their way to national publications. The country was now witnessing through the newspapers the violence pouring into the streets of Chicago. Capone built and maintained his empire at his headquarters at the Metropole Hotel, and he refused to shy away from attention. If anything, he was very open about being seen, and being seen in affluent situations, always dining at the best locations, wearing the most expensive and fashionable clothes. He was a massive show-off. On September 20th, 1926, Capone was dining in a restaurant at the Hawthorne Hotel and naturally not keeping his location a secret. Moran takes this opportunity to launch an attack against Capone. He and his gunmen pull alongside the Hawthorne Hotel and fire over 1,000 rounds in a matter of minutes and miss their target. Capone survives the assassination attempt but vows retribution, although it would be 2.5 years before he would get his revenge. In February 1929, Moran is tipped off that Capone is expecting a delivery of liquor and decides to intercept that delivery and take it for himself. He schedules a meeting for February 14th to strike a deal with the delivery guy to take the shipment to Moran and cut Capone out of the scheme altogether. On the morning of February 14th, 1929, Albert Kachelek, Adam Heyer, Albert Weinshank, Frank Gusenberg, Peter Gusenberg, and Dr. Reinhard Schwimmer, who were members of Moran's gang, were assembled and waiting in a commercial garage that served as the headquarters for the North Side Gang. This is where the go-between representative concerning Capone's alleged delivery was to meet with Moran to strike a deal. At 10:30, Moran was running a little late for his meeting, and as he turned the corner with the garage coming into view, he sees somewhere between 2 and 4 police officers. Different sources report different numbers of police officers that were there, entering the garage. Considering his primary business, Moran was under the assumption that the garage was being raided, which was a normal practice of police officers during this time. The police officers would come into warehouses and suspected stash houses used for storing and/or producing illegal liquor and either extort bribes paid in money or casks of liquor to keep quiet, or they would simply destroy the inventory. Assuming it was a raid and believing that his men could handle the bribery, Moran keeps walking just right past the garage. Inside the garage, the police immediately round up the 7 members of Moran's gang and line them up facing the wall, away from the police officers. The men allowed themselves to be lined up thinking, just as Moran had, that it was a standard raid and that they'd easily be able to negotiate some form of payoff with the police. Unfortunately for the 7 men, the police officers were in fact assassins. These assassins then pulled Tommy guns, the preferred gangster weapon at the time, from beneath their trench coats where they had been concealed and opened fire. After the men fell, the assassins vacated the premises before the real police officers could arrive. In their haste to leave, they unknowingly left Frank Gusenberg alive. Once the real police arrived, they rushed Frank off to the hospital where he was questioned as to the identity of the assailants. Good old Frank held firm to the gangland doctrine of a muerta, which is a code of silence adopted by the gangsters concerning criminal activities and those involved. He refused to provide the names of those that fired upon him and the others. Some sources say that Frank responded to the inquiry of "Who shot you?" with "No one. Nobody shot me." Frank died shortly after the shooting from his injuries. Without any witnesses, the police were never able to bring charges against anyone, and although it has never been proven in any way, Capone has always been credited with the formulation and order to have the murders carried out. In truth, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre held similarities to the murder of Dean O'Banion in his flower shop. At the flower shop, Torrio's men entered under the guise of being customers and just perusing the flower selections before turning their hidden Tommy guns on the unsuspecting victim. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre was the last mass murder in the war between the North and South Side gangs. Following the massacre, Moran was never able to fully recover the manpower required to maintain the empire that he'd amassed. Unable to keep his grip on the territory and business, Moran moved into smaller petty crimes and was eventually arrested and convicted of bank robbery. He eventually died in prison in 1957 of lung cancer. Capone was only able to enjoy full control of Chicago for 2 additional years. He was arrested and sent to prison for tax evasion in 1931. He was sentenced to 11 years, and after serving 8, he was released due to suffering the effects of late-stage syphilis. The horrific St. Valentine's Day Massacre shook the nation when the news reached nationwide notoriety and became the symbol of the violence of notorious Prohibition gangsters. In the end, the 18th Amendment was repealed with the passing and ratification of the 21st Amendment on December 5, 1933. This is the first and only amendment ever to repeal a prior amendment to the Constitution. If you learned anything today, don't forget to like and subscribe to be alerted to new and updated content. If you have any suggestions for any topics that you would like covered, please feel free to leave a comment below. We'll see you next time.